Princess Lyra stood on the edge of her sleek starship, gazing at the swirling blue and green orb below. Earth was smaller than she had imagined, its surface dotted with clouds and oceans that shimmered faintly under the sun's light. For years, she had searched for this moment, traversing uncharted galaxies, deciphering cryptic maps left by ancient civilizations, and enduring countless sleepless nights in zero gravity. All of it led her here, to a planet teeming with life, but also chaos. Her heart raced as she thought about what, or rather, who, awaited her. Kale. The name echoed in her mind like a song she couldn't forget. He wasn't just anyone. He was her bondmate, chosen not by fate alone, but by something far greater. The convergence. It was an event so rare that most beings never witnessed it in their lifetimes. During the convergence, two souls from different worlds became inexplicably linked across dimensions, bound together by threads of energy no one fully understood. Lyra remembered the day vividly, how Cal's laughter had filled the void between stars, how his eyes sparkled even through the haze of cosmic dust. They had promised each other they would meet again, no matter the distance or time. But now, standing aboard her ship, Lyra felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had found him, yes, but he didn't remember her. A devastating accident years ago had erased all traces of their connection from his mind. To him, she was nothing more than a stranger. And yet, she couldn't turn back. Not after everything she'd sacrificed to get here. Lyra stepped onto the teleportation platform, her long silver hair catching the soft glow of the ship's interior lights. With a deep breath, she activated the device, feeling the familiar hum of energy coursing through her body as molecules dissolved into particles and reformed on Earth's surface. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a quiet park surrounded by towering trees. Birds chirped overhead, and the air smelled fresh, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of her starship. She spotted him almost immediately. Cal sat on a bench nearby, sketching something in a notebook. His dark hair fell messily over his forehead, and his hands moved with practiced ease. He looked older than she remembered, his face lined with subtle marks of stress and responsibility. Gone was the reckless adventurer who once laughed at the edge of black holes. This version of Cal seemed grounded, too grounded. Lyra hesitated, unsure whether to approach him. What could she say? "Hello, I'm your alien soulmate." That wouldn't go well. Instead, she took a step forward, her boots crunching softly against the gravel path. At the sound, Cal glanced up, his brow furrowing slightly as he studied her. There was recognition there, not of her identity, but of something deeper, something buried beneath layers of forgotten memories. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice polite but cautious. Lyra smiled, though her heart ached. "Maybe," she replied softly. "Or maybe I'm here to help you." For a brief moment, Cal frowned, as if trying to piece together why her words sounded familiar. Then he shook his head, dismissing the thought. "I don't think we've met before," he said, returning to his sketchbook. Lyra watched him silently, her resolve hardening. Finding him was only the first step. Now came the hardest part, making him remember. Next morning, Lyra stood outside Cal's apartment building, clutching a backpack filled with carefully chosen items. She had spent hours strategizing how to insert herself into his life without raising suspicion. After all, she couldn't just walk up to him and say, "I'm your alien wife from another galaxy." That would only make matters worse. Instead, she decided on a subtler approach, blending in as an ordinary human. She adjusted the glasses perched on her nose, a simple disguise but effective enough, and knocked on the door. When Cal opened it, he looked surprised to see her again. "You're the girl from the park," he said slowly, his tone cautious. "That's right," Lyra replied with a bright smile. "And I think we got off on the wrong foot. My name is Lyra, by the way." Cal hesitated before nodding. "Cal," he introduced himself, though his expression remained guarded. "I'm new in town," Lyra continued smoothly, sticking to the story she'd rehearsed. Just transferred here for school. I was wondering if you could show me around. You seem like someone who knows this place well. Kale raised an eyebrow. School. Yes, I heard about the observatory where you work. It sounds fascinating. She tilted her head slightly, feigning curiosity. Maybe you could teach me a thing or two about stars. For a moment, Kale seemed unsure. He glanced over his shoulder at the clock inside his apartment, then back at her. Finally, he sighed. All right, fine. But don't expect anything too exciting. Lyra beamed inwardly. Step 1. Complete. Over the next few days, she made sure to stay close to Kale, tagging along as he went about his routine. She learned quickly that he wasn't the same man she remembered. The Kale she knew was bold, adventurous, always eager to explore the unknown. This version of him preferred quiet evenings alone, poring over star charts and jotting notes in his ever-present sketchbook. Yet, despite these changes, there were moments when his old self peeked through, like when he explained the constellations with such passion that his eyes lit up, or when he laughed at something silly she said, the sound warm and familiar. Still, Lyra struggled to reconcile this quieter, more reserved Kale with the man she loved. Was it the accident that changed him, or had Earth itself dulled his spirit? Either way, she found herself growing frustrated. Every attempt to jog his memory felt like throwing pebbles into a deep lake. The ripples barely reached him before fading away. One evening, as they sat on the roof of the observatory watching the sunset, Lyra tried once more. Do you ever feel like there's something missing? She asked softly. Kale frowned, leaning back against the railing. Missing? Like a piece of you isn't quite whole. He chuckled dryly. Isn't that everyone's problem? We're all searching for something, aren't we? Lyra bit her lip, realizing she might have pushed too far. Before she could respond, Kale stood up abruptly. Look, Lyra, I appreciate you trying to help, or whatever this is, but I've got my own stuff to figure out. Okay. His words stung, but she forced herself to nod. Okay, she murmured. As Kale walked away, leaving her alone under the darkening sky, Lyra clenched her fists tightly. This wasn't going to be easy, but she refused to give up, not after coming so far. Whatever it took, she would remind him of who they were, together. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra grew more determined than ever. She couldn't afford to lose patience, not when every moment with Kale brought her closer to unraveling the mystery of his forgotten memories. But progress was agonizingly slow. Each time she hinted at their shared past, he either dismissed her or changed the subject entirely. Still, Lyra noticed small, strange things happening whenever they were together, things that gave her hope. One evening, as they worked side by side in the observatory, organizing star maps for an upcoming project, the lights above them flickered unexpectedly. Kale glanced up, frowning. Weird, he muttered. The power's been acting up lately. Lyra froze, her heart skipping a beat. The flickering wasn't random. It happened because of her. Their bond, though dormant in Kale's mind, still existed between them, creating ripples in the energy around them. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She forced herself to stay calm. Maybe it's just old wiring, she suggested casually, pretending not to notice how the air seemed charged electric. Kale shrugged and went back to sorting papers, but moments later, another odd thing occurred. A pencil resting on the edge of the table rolled off without anyone touching it, landing softly on the floor. This time, both of them stopped what they were doing. Okay, that's weird, Kale said, staring at the pencil. He bent down to pick it up, his brow furrowed. Did you bump the table? No, Lyra replied quickly, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions whirling inside her. Must be gravity or something. Kale chuckled nervously, shaking his head. Gravity doesn't work like that. They laughed awkwardly, but Lyra could tell he was unsettled. Over the next few days, these incidents became more frequent. Doors creaked open on their own. Shadows moved where no one stood. And then, late one night, Cale began having vivid dreams. He didn't tell Lyra about them right away. Instead, she noticed the change in his demeanor. He looked tired, distracted, as if carrying a heavy weight. One morning, while sipping coffee in the observatory's break room, she finally asked, "You seem off lately. Everything okay?" Cale hesitated, stirring his coffee absently. "It's probably nothing," he said after a pause. "Just dreams. Weird ones." "What kind of dreams?" Lyra pressed gently, leaning forward. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know. I see places I've never been before. Strange planets, glowing skies, oceans made of light. And there's always this voice calling out to me, but I can't make out what it's saying." He glanced at her, almost sheepishly. "Sounds crazy, right?" Lyra's chest tightened. Those weren't just dreams. They were fragments of their past, buried deep within him. Her voice softened. "Not crazy. Maybe your subconscious is trying to tell you something." "Like what?" Cale asked, skeptical yet intrigued. "I don't know," she admitted, choosing her words carefully. "But maybe we should explore it, together." Over the following days, Lyra introduced subtle reminders of their history. She showed him images of alien landscapes similar to the ones in his dreams, played music reminiscent of the melodies they once danced to, and even pointed out constellations tied to their journey. At first, Cale seemed skeptical, brushing off her suggestions as coincidences, but gradually the pieces started coming together in his mind. One night, as they stargazed on the observatory roof, Cale suddenly turned to her, his eyes wide with realization. "Why does all this feel so familiar?" he whispered, almost to himself. Lyra smiled faintly, her heart swelling with cautious hope. "Because it's part of you," she said softly. "And maybe it's time you remembered why." For the first time, Cale didn't pull away. As Cale's curiosity about his past grew, so did the tension between him and Lyra. He couldn't shake the feeling that she knew more than she was letting on. Every time she mentioned stars or distant planets, her eyes sparkled with an intensity that made him uneasy. Was she trying to help him or manipulate him? The questions gnawed at him, keeping him awake at night. One evening, after another long day at the observatory, Cale decided to confront her. "Lyra," he began hesitantly as they walked back from dinner, the city lights casting soft glows around them. "Why do you keep showing me these things? These pictures, songs, constellations." Lyra stopped in her tracks, turning to face him. Her expression was calm, but there was a flicker of something deeper. "Fear, perhaps, or desperation. Because I think they're important to you," she said carefully. "Don't you feel it too? Like there's something missing, something you've forgotten?" Cale crossed his arms, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "That's just it. I don't remember. And every time you bring this up, it feels like you're pushing me towards something I'm not ready for." "I'm not pushing you," Lyra insisted, taking a step closer. "I'm trying to guide you, to remind you of who you are." "Who I am," Cale echoed, his voice rising slightly. "You barely know me. We've only been talking for a few weeks. How can you possibly know anything about who I really am?" Lyra opened her mouth to respond but hesitated. She wanted to tell him everything, to explain their bond, their shared destiny, but the words caught in her throat. If she revealed too much now, would he believe her, or would it drive him further away? Before she could decide, a sudden commotion interrupted them. A group of men emerged from the shadows of a nearby alleyway, their movements deliberate and menacing. They wore sleek black uniforms adorned with strange insignias, and their leader stepped forward with a cold smile. "Princess Lyra," he said mockingly, bowing slightly. "We've been looking for you." Cale instinctively moved in front of Lyra, his protective instincts kicking in despite his confusion. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice firm. The man ignored him, focusing instead on Lyra. "Your absence has caused quite a stir among the Luminal Council. They grow impatient. Surely you realize running away won't solve anything." Lyra's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I'm not running," she snapped, "and you have no right to interfere here." The man chuckled darkly. "Oh, but we do. You see, your little human friend isn't safe, not while he's tied to you." His gaze shifted briefly to Cale, narrowing. "He carries something valuable within him, whether he realizes it or not. Something our faction intends to claim." Cale glanced between them, his mind racing. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice tinged with panic. "What does this have to do with me?" Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "We need to go. Now." Without waiting for a response, she activated a small device hidden in her pocket, a portable teleportation beacon. In an instant, the world around them dissolved into shimmering particles, leaving the mysterious men behind. When they reappeared moments later in a secluded forest clearing, Cale staggered, clutching his head. What just happened?" he stammered, his breathing uneven. Lyra steadied him, her expression grim. "I'll explain everything," she promised. "But first, you need to trust me." Cale stared at her, torn between fear and anger. "Trust you? After all this, how can I when you won't even tell me the truth?" Lyra swallowed hard, knowing she had reached a breaking point. "All right," she said quietly. "If you want the truth, then listen carefully. Because once you hear it, there's no going back." For the first time, Cale didn't interrupt. He simply nodded, bracing himself for whatever came next. The forest clearing was eerily quiet, save for the rustling of leaves in the cool night breeze. Lyra stood before Cale, her silver hair glowing faintly under the moonlight. She took a deep breath, knowing this moment would change everything, either bringing them closer or tearing them apart forever. "Cale," she began, her voice trembling slightly but resolute, "you're not just an ordinary human. You never were." He frowned, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "What are you talking about?" "You and I, we're connected, not by chance, but by something far greater, a cosmic event called the Convergence." She paused, searching his face for any sign of recognition. When none came, she continued. "During the Convergence, two souls from different worlds become linked across dimensions. It's rare, almost unheard of. And it happened to us." Cale blinked, processing her words. "Wait, you're saying aliens exist, and somehow I'm involved?" "Yes," Lyra said firmly. "But it's more than that. We didn't just meet randomly during the Convergence. We formed a bond, a connection so powerful that it transcended space and time. We promised each other we'd reunite, no matter what." Cale shook his head, his expression skeptical. "That sounds insane. If all this is true, why don't I remember any of it?" "Because of the accident," Lyra explained softly. "Something happened on Earth that erased your memories of me, and of who you truly are. But the bond didn't disappear. It's still there, buried deep inside you." Cale stepped back, running a hand through his hair as if trying to steady himself. "This is too much. Why should I believe you?" Lyra hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, glowing crystal. "This is a memory shard," she said, holding it up. "It's ancient technology designed to restore lost memories. If you let me use it, you'll see everything. The stars we traveled to, the promises we made, the love we shared." Cale stared at the crystal, torn between disbelief and curiosity. "And if I say no?" "Then I leave," Lyra replied simply. "I'll walk away and never bother you again. But if even a part of you feels drawn to me, if you felt those echoes pulling at you, then trust me enough to try." For a long moment, Cale said nothing. He looked at the crystal, then at Lyra, his mind racing. The dreams, the strange occurrences, the nagging sense of familiarity, it all made a twisted kind of sense now. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right, let's do it." Lyra exhaled sharply, relief washing over her. She placed the crystal against his forehead, whispering a command in a language Cale didn't understand. A warm glow enveloped him, and suddenly, images flooded his mind. Vivid, overwhelming flashes of another life. He saw himself standing on alien worlds, laughing with Lyra beneath shimmering nebula. He remembered their adventures, their arguments, their quiet moments together. He relived the day of the convergence, feeling the surge of energy that bound them together. And finally, he saw the accident, the explosion that wiped his memory clean. When the visions faded, Cal collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Tears streamed down his face as he looked up at Lyra. "It's real," he whispered hoarsely. "All of it." Lyra knelt beside him, her own eyes glistening. "Do you remember now?" she asked gently. Cale nodded, his hands trembling. "I remember. Us." But even as the truth sank in, doubt lingered in his heart. Could he really embrace this new reality, or would it consume him? Cale sat in silence, his mind reeling from the flood of memories. The images were vivid, almost overwhelming, like stepping into a dream he hadn't known existed. He saw himself laughing with Lyra under alien skies, their hands intertwined as they danced amidst glowing constellations. He remembered the promises they made, the adventures they shared, and the love that had once burned so brightly between them. But now, sitting on the cold forest floor with tears drying on his cheeks, he felt conflicted. Lyra watched him carefully, her heart aching at the struggle etched across his face. "Cale," she said softly, reaching out to touch his shoulder. "I know this is a lot to take in, but you're not alone. I'm here with you." He pulled away slightly, his expression guarded. "You say we were connected, that we promised each other things, but how can I trust those memories? They feel real, yes, but also distant, like they belong to someone else." "It's because they did," Lyra admitted quietly. "The man you are now isn't the same person you were before the accident. You've changed, Cale. Earth shaped you into someone new. But that doesn't mean your bond with me is gone. It just means it needs to be rebuilt." Cale sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "Even if I accept all this, what happens next? Do I just leave everything behind? My life, my work, my home?" Lyra hesitated, knowing the weight of his question. She couldn't force him to choose her, not after everything he'd been through. "It's your decision," she said finally. "But know this, the bond we share isn't just about us. It's tied to something bigger, something that affects both our worlds. If the rival faction finds you, they'll stop at nothing to exploit the connection. They could destroy entire galaxies trying to control it." Cale frowned, anger flickering in his eyes. "So I'm supposed to fix this, save the universe or whatever? That's insane. No one expects you to do it alone." Lyra replied firmly. "That's why I'm here. Together, we can protect what matters most, not just us, but everyone who depends on the balance our bond helps maintain." Her words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Cale stared at her, seeing the determination in her gaze, and the vulnerability beneath it. For the first time, he realized how much she had sacrificed for him. Leaving her empire, risking her life, enduring rejection, all for the hope of finding him again. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted quietly. "But I can't ignore it either. Not anymore." Lyra nodded, relief washing over her. "Then let's start small. We'll train together, help you reconnect with your abilities, and when the time comes, we'll face whatever challenges lie ahead, together." As they stood up, preparing to leave the clearing, a sudden rumble shook the ground. Overhead, the sky darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling into a vortex. A sleek black ship descended, its engines roaring ominously. "They found us," Lyra whispered, gripping Cale's arm. "We need to move. Now." Cale glanced at her, then at the approaching ship. Fear surged within him, but so did resolve. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. Taking a deep breath, he nodded. "Let's go." Together, they ran into the shadows, ready to fight for their bond. and their future. The forest erupted into chaos as beams of energy sliced through the trees, illuminating the darkness with bursts of light. Kale and Lyra sprinted side by side, dodging the relentless assault from the rival faction's ship. Each step felt heavier than the last, but Kale pushed forward, driven by a newfound determination. He wasn't just running for his life, he was fighting for something bigger. For Lyra, for their bond, for the universe that depended on them. "Keep moving," Lyra shouted, pulling him behind a cluster of boulders as another blast shattered the ground nearby. She glanced at him, her eyes sharp and focused. "We can't let them capture you. If they access your memories, they'll unravel everything." Kale nodded, his heart pounding. "What do we do?" Lyra hesitated, then pulled out the glowing crystal she'd used to restore his memories. "This is our only chance. The bond between us. It's not just emotional. It's energy. Power. If you focus, you can tap into it. Use it." "I don't even know how," Kale protested, panic rising in his voice. "You will," Lyra said firmly. "Close your eyes. Feel me. Feel us." Kale clenched his fists, trying to steady his breathing. He closed his eyes, shutting out the sounds of destruction around them. At first, all he could hear was the frantic beating of his own heart. But then, faintly, he felt something else, a warmth spreading through his chest, like sunlight breaking through clouds. It was Lyra. Their connection. Faint but undeniable. "Now channel it," Lyra urged, her voice calm despite the danger. "Push it outward. Trust me." Kale opened his eyes, the world around him suddenly brighter, sharper. Without thinking, he raised his hand toward the advancing figures of the rival faction. A surge of energy shot forth, forming a shimmering barrier that deflected their attacks. The force knocked several of them off their feet, buying Kale and Lyra precious seconds to regroup. Lyra stared at him, pride and awe shining in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "That's just the beginning." Encouraged by her words, Kale stood taller, confidence replacing fear. Together, they devised a plan. Using the terrain to their advantage, they lured the enemy deeper into the forest, setting traps along the way. Branches snapped underfoot, creating distractions, while Lyra used her advanced technology to disable some of their weapons. Kale continued to hone his newfound abilities, unleashing bursts of energy that scattered their pursuers. But the fight wasn't without cost. As they neared the edge of the forest, Lyra stumbled, clutching her side. Blood seeped through her fingers where a stray blast had grazed her. Kale froze, panic gripping him again. "Lyra." "I'm fine," she insisted, though her voice wavered. "Don't stop now. We're almost there." Summoning every ounce of strength, Kale scooped her up and carried her toward the clearing where her starship awaited. When they reached it, he set her down gently before turning to face their attackers one final time. With a roar of defiance, he unleashed the full power of their bond, a radiant wave of energy that sent the remaining enemies sprawling backward, defeated. As the dust settled, Lyra looked up at him, tears mingling with relief. "You saved us," she murmured. Kale shook his head, smiling faintly. "No, we saved each other." For the first time since rediscovering their bond, Kale truly believed they could overcome anything together. The starship hummed softly as it soared through the vast expanse of space, leaving Earth far behind. Kale stood by the observation window, gazing at the endless sea of stars stretching out before him. It was surreal. Just days ago, he had been an ordinary man living a quiet life on a small blue planet. Now he was hurtling through the cosmos alongside Lyra, his alien princess, ready to embrace a destiny that felt both foreign and familiar. Lyra joined him at the window, her silver hair catching the soft glow of distant suns. She smiled faintly, noticing how intently he studied the view. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, her voice gentle. Kale hesitated, then shrugged. "Everything. Nothing. I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this." "It's okay to feel overwhelmed," Lyra replied, leaning against the railing beside him. "You didn't ask for any of this. But here you are, stepping into something bigger than yourself, and doing it with courage." He glanced at her, a mix of gratitude and determination in his eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you. You never gave up on me, even when I doubted everything, including myself. And I never will," Lyra said firmly, taking his hand in hers. "We're stronger together, Cale. Always." As they floated in silence, watching the galaxy unfold before them, Cale realized something important. He wasn't losing himself by leaving Earth. He was finding a new version of who he could be. The memories restored to him weren't just echoes of the past. They were tools to shape the future. Together, he and Lyra would forge a legacy built on love, trust, and unity. Their journey wasn't without challenges. When they arrived at the Luminal Empire, Cale faced skepticism from Lyra's advisors and leaders. Many questioned whether a human could truly fulfill the role of bondmate to a royal princess. But Cale refused to back down. Drawing upon the strength of their connection, he proved himself, not through grand gestures, but through actions. He listened, learned, and adapted, earning respect not because of his title, but because of his character. In turn, Lyra became a voice for change within the Empire. Inspired by Cale's resilience and humanity, she advocated for greater cooperation between species, believing that diversity made civilizations stronger. Their bond became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even across unimaginable distances, understanding and love could bridge divides. One evening, as they stood on the deck of the starship overlooking a dazzling supernova, Cale turned to Lyra with a smile. "Do you think we'll ever stop marveling at all this?" "Probably not," she replied, laughing softly. "And why should we? The universe is infinite. There's always more to discover, more to fight for." Hand in hand, they watched the explosion fade into a sea of glittering light, its brilliance a testament to the power of renewal. They had come so far, from loss and doubt to rediscovery and triumph. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, guided by the unbreakable thread that bound them. For the first time in years, Lyra felt whole again. And Cale, he finally understood what it meant to belong, not to a place, but to someone, to something greater than himself. As the ship sailed onward, carrying them toward unknown horizons, one truth remained clear: their story was only beginning.